Hello everyone to the Children Immunization Workshop by myself. So to get started, there's many questions asked about immunizations, and we'd like to kind of go over a few things about them. So I think the first important thing to understand is what is an immunization. An immunization is a shot that is given to children to protect against diseases that are life-threatening. Utah has a very good immunization rate with 71.9% of children immunized. That's really good. That means that most children are protected from these viruses that are very life-threatening. So we'll kind of move on to the next slide. So the history of vaccines, kind of in a nutshell, we start with Edward Jenner, who created the first vaccine in the 1700s. And this was done by taking material from a blister of someone infected with cowpox and inoculating it into another person's skin. It's kind of harsh and it's kind of crazy at that point, but it worked. I mean, that was the craziest part about the whole thing. They didn't understand the science between it, but they figured if a little tiny portion of it got into someone, then it would probably help them. And it really worked, and they had it from that point on, and they used it on a few people, including a few of the cousins of royalty, and once again it worked. But they didn't really understand the science around it until the early 1900s. And by 1940s, the CDC had recommended 4 vaccines for children. That was diphtheria, tetanus, whooping coughs, vaccine, and smallpox. Those are all vaccines, and they were all done, and they are now together. So in the 1950s was another really major achievement, which is polio vaccine. And that was Jonas Salk. He was the inventor of it, and at that time, many people were afraid of polio. You look at like FDR, who's the famous president of the United States. He had polio, and he was in a wheelchair the whole time because of it. He had it early in his childhood, and then it progressed and got worse, and that was what he had left over. He couldn't move his legs. So when they were able to inoculate people, it went crazy. They lined up and they instantly had everyone get it. And within a few years, it was almost instantly gone. So in the 1990s was another one that's kind of notable because most people know about the chickenpox. And rotavirus is another one that they added to the recommendations for children. So here's a list of the children's inoculation or immunizations for 2020. There's Hep B, RV, Dtap, Hib, PCV13, IPV, MMR, Varicella, and Hep A. Okay, that's a lot of different ones, and there's a few more, but we'd kind of like to go over these now. So Tdap is one that really begins early. They recommend that all adults, especially those who are going to be around young infants, should get Tdap vaccine. Adults often unwillingly pass whooping cough to young infants for whom the disease can be fatal. In 2012, the CDC recommended that pregnant women get a dose of Tdap during each pregnancy between 27 and 36 weeks of gestation. Once again, this is very important for children because it is so vital for them to have any immunization against this or any buildup resistance for it. If they get it, then they're dead or very injured. So here's a list and the schedule for all the children. As you can kind of see, there's a lot of doses right here. There's dose right there, doses right there. These are all very important ones that we've determined that are needed for children. So I kind of like to go over a list, just a few of these that kind of it gives on why they're so important. So let's go over MMR. So MMR is mumps, measles, and rubella. Those are the vaccines that it's kind of covering, and those are the ones that it's vaccinations for. So with mumps, it gives brain swelling, inflammation of testicles, ovaries, or deafness. Those are all caused by one. That was mumps. And so these are very life-threatening. These could cause, infertility, and this could also cause deafness. Now measles is another one. It causes brain swelling and lung infections. And so many of these are very important for children to have, just because if they don't have it, then they could die, or they could be seriously injured. And so they are recommended to get these. So after that, kind of move on to the next slide. There we go. Cool. So there's a frequently asked questions that are found on the web and also among people that are just curious. The first question is, does my baby need immunizations if I'm breastfeeding? The answer is yes. The idea that breastfeeding transfers antibodies is correct, but breastfeeding isn't a substitute for a vaccine. Next question is, does MMR vaccine cause autism? No, the confusion comes because children are usually diagnosed with autism around the same time they get the MMR vaccine. There's also another one that they think that it goes along with SIDS just because it's so common around that time that they're getting that vaccine. And so they think that the vaccine is associated with SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome. And no, none of those are related to vaccines. They've been, as the question right here says, they've been tried, proven, and tested. They are under constant watch by the FDA to make sure that it is safe. And that is how we know vaccines are safe. So the last question is, should some children not be immunized? The answer, children with cancer or lung/kidney conditions are the only exceptions, and when they're healed, they're recommended to get them. So we'll continue on. So just a quick review, now that we've kind of gone over my workshop. The first thing we need to remember is vaccines were created very early in the 1700s, and then really weren't instituted until the 1900s, where they became very important for our civilization. And they've definitely helped everyone in the world. And that's basically how many of us, I think, are still alive. Now, continuing on, the frequently asked questions, are vaccines safe? And the answer is yes. And they help avoid serious effects that can come from diseases. And once again, vaccines don't cause autism or SIDS. That is very important to note. Thank you for joining me, and hope you have a